Good evening. This is Stormcast from Stormcast's Comics and Collectibles. And today let's talk about The Rocketeer. The Rocketeer, besides being a really good movie, was a comic series made by Dave Stevens in 1982, which appeared originally in the book Star Slayer, Log of the Jolly Roger, issues number 2 and 3. I have number 3. This is written by Mike Grell from Pacific Comics. First 2 issues appeared, and then some time went by. And then Pacific Comics put up Pacific Presents 1 and 2, which had more Rocketeer. It also had the character The Missing Man by Steve Ditko. And if you've never read anything, unless you've read The Missing Man, there are very few things you've read that is as trippy as this. Steve Ditko was one of the greats. But we're not talking about Steve today. Eventually, the license and the rights, Dave Stevens moved his comic thing over to Eclipse Comics. And they made the Rocketeer Special Edition. And then the last 3 parts, which I do not have, came in the Rocketeer Magazine 1, 2, and 3. Also, they put out the Rocketeer Movie Special. Basically, the story goes like this. Cliff Secord is a pilot who flies for Bigelow's Air Circus at the Chaplin Airdrome, and his best friend and mechanic is Ambrose Peabody, known as Peavy, who helps fix and repair the ships. Peavy was based upon the artist Doug Wildey, who was a friend of Dave Stevens. Cliff has a girlfriend named Betty, who is based upon the pinup girl Betty Page, who people have probably seen tons of pictures of Betty Page and Manor Lizard. And they basically, Cliff and Peavy basically find this rocket pack, which has been hidden by people at the air circus. After it's a little bit they try it on, and they find how it works, and Peavy designs a helmet so it's more usable, more streamlined, and Cliff, is forced to wear the outfit to help save somebody his friend who went up in the plane in his place. A lot of the story from the original comic is a lot like the movie. So if you've ever seen the movie, there are a lot of similarities in it, but there's also a lot of differences in it. First off, in the movie, Jennifer Connelly plays his girlfriend Jenny, who's an actress. Well, in the original series, her name is Betty, based upon Betty Page, and instead of Jenny trying to make it big and running to Neville Sinclair, who's a big actor who kind of gets in the way, then helps her out. There's this photographer who's very sleazy. I believe his name is Mario. And he's also based on somebody who I cannot remember. And in the process of figuring out what the thing, they encounter some people who they think are thugs or criminals, and the more they suspect, they hear people talk German, so they think they're Nazis, and it turns out it's a couple men who work for the inventor. In the movie, the inventor is listed as Howard Hughes, famous, real world inventor. They place him around, but in the comics, Dave Stevens actually based it on the pulp character Doc Savage, but not sure he didn't have the rights. He just called me inventor. Peavy actually does in the comics say, "Oh, I know you work for Howard Hughes," and his 2 people are like, "Yeah, okay, you know exactly what's going on." It's a good series. I don't want to give too much of it away. And honestly, the movie was fantastic. I liked the movie, and I would love to see. Honestly, I'd love to see a sequel, or honestly a series. 6, 8 issue series, maybe a couple of seasons. It was very fun. Dave Stevens liked that version of Americana. He liked things set in the pulp times, two-fisted fighting, heroes were larger than life. You know, in the movie, there's this great scene where he stands in front of the flag and puts the gun up, which is a famous picture in the pinups. It's a very good grounded story. It's Cliff Secord is a flawed character who struggles and doesn't always overcome everybody easily. He's a troubled but flawed and realistic hero. Dave Stevens was very passionate, but it took him a while to do his things. He once said that he could write a lot of books if he wanted to, preferred quality over quantity. So there were not a whole lot of original. There weren't a whole lot of original stories. He got a lot of control when they made the movie with Disney. He was there. The director is actually the same director who did Captain America: First Avenger. But The Rocketeer was always a labor of love. In fact, later in life, Dave Stevens got to befriended Betty Page in the 90s when he was working for Dark Horse Comics, and he told her how valuable her asset and her images and stuff, and which allowed her to go off and market herself and take control and live a much better life, and they remained friends. He died in 2008. But his legacy still does live on. Dark Horse, eventually IDW Comics had the rights, and for the last couple of years, they've put out a series of 4 books every year. It's drawn in the same style. This is from Den of Thieves. This is a variant cover, which I love that cover. That is an amazing piece of art. It's drawn to look like Dave Stevens did it. The character is treated reverently. Steve Mooney and Dave Messina are look at this. These are some amazing 4-issue series, which continues the story of bit by bit of what has happened to Cliff Secord. These are a labor of love. There's a compilation out now where it has all the original stuff, and the people who knew Dave Stevens best have written it and said their thoughts and memories. If you've never read The Rocketeer and you want to start something really fun, really enjoyable, it's. I didn't even realize it was coming out, so I grabbed issue 2 and 3 and 4 at the comic store, and they couldn't give me an issue 1, so I bought a copy off eBay, and I'm glad, honestly, because I love that cover. The Rocketeer is a fun character, and it strikes back for that nostalgia that we have of our mind of what Americana used to be. And that's an imaginary world, but it's when the good guys were good guys and the bad guys were quite obviously bad guys. It's a simpler time, but the original Rocketeer was a labor of love. And those who are keeping the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, they also are treating it like a really good project. They could be pumping out Rocketeer books monthly, 2 or 3 series, special edition, whatever. But like Dave Stevens, it's a matter of quality over quantity. Mess it up. Too often we get a whole bunch of characters popular, and we get flooded. You have 4 or 5 Bat titles every month. Superman has a whole bunch of titles. Spider-Man has a whole bunch of titles. There are all kinds of Bat adjacent and Spider adjacent, Super adjacent stuff. For the Rocketeer, we get every year 4 issues set with these characters that are treated like a labor of love. Honestly, you probably can get these. Honestly, you can get the original copies for fairly reasonable prices. I love that cover. None of these books are overtly way out there. If you want to get the originals, There is a solicitation right now of artist rendition of the original books, put by IDW, hardcover with a bunch of extra bells and whistles and stuff on it. If you're interested in that, I'm interested in that. I'm probably going to order myself a copy because I like The Rocketeer. I've had many copies of the books over the years. I've bought a bunch of the other series. I've enjoyed them. And honestly, I'm sorry, that was my dog shaking my stand. But let me wrap this up real quickly. If you get a chance, try the new Rocketeer. Or look for the old Rocketeer. You can find these really at very reasonable prices. And you can find or you can get the hardcover, the deluxe with all the artist notes and everything. You might really enjoy. You may find yourself a love for a character that you haven't thought about in a long time. And for a few moments, it'll capture that spark of the real pulp, of how enjoyable the old pulp characters were. Anyways, this is Stormcastle, who's now having tremors of my camera with the way it's set up, the stand. But anyways, I thank you for listening. Try the Rocketeer. Either the classic stuff by Dave Stevens and The Missing Man, or the more modern things, which also feels like Dave Stevens has whispered in their ears. Thank you and have a nice day.